It's been a long week at the station, folks. You know how it is, paperwork piling up, calls coming in at all hours, and the constant hum of responsibility that never quite shuts off. Nothing clears my head like the low, throaty growl of my Mustang's engine. I've lived in this little corner of suburbia for over a decade now, and let me tell you, it's a peaceful place. Quiet streets, neat lawns, kids riding bikes until the streetlights flicker on. But there's one exception to this idyllic setup. One name that sends a ripple of groans through our whole meetings. Karen. Oh, you know the type. She's the self-appointed queen of the block. The kind of person who measures your grass with a ruler and sends passive-aggressive emails about your mailbox being non-compliant, too loud, too fast. The colorful nothing escapes her scrutiny. And her son, let's just say the apple didn't fall far from the tree. He's got her entitlement dialed up to 11 with an extra layer of arrogance and, unfortunately, a streak of prejudice that's impossible to ignore. I've been in law enforcement for nearly 20 years, seen every kind of character you can imagine, from petty thieves to hardened criminals. But there's something uniquely exhausting about dealing with people like Karen and her kid in your own neighborhood where you're supposed to feel at home. This community, for all its charm, has its flaws, and I've learned to navigate them with a cool head. You don't survive as a police chief without knowing how to keep your composure under pressure. Still, some days, you just want to grab a coffee, enjoy your day off, and not have to deal with nonsense. But nonsense, it seems, has a way of finding me. It was a sunny Saturday morning, the kind where the air feels crisp and the sky is so blue it almost hurts to look at it. I just finished a grueling week at the station, overtime shifts, a couple of high-stakes calls, and a mountain of reports that seemed to multiply overnight. My Mustang, a sleek black beast I'd saved up for over years of hard work, was my escape. I'd spent the morning polishing it, the chrome gleaming under the sunlight, the leather seats still smelling faintly of the dealership. Driving it always felt like a small rebellion against the chaos of my job, a reminder that I'd earned something for myself. I pulled up to the community clubhouse, a low brick building where the Hoa hosts its meetings and the locals grab coffee or play cards. I parked in the lot, grabbed my keys, and headed toward the door, already tasting the dark roast I was craving. That's when I saw him, Karen's son, Ethan. I think his name is. He's maybe 19 or 20, lanky, with a permanent sneer plastered across his face. He was leaning against a lamppost, scrolling on his phone, but his eyes locked onto my car the second I stepped out. He straightened up, his gaze narrowing as he took in the Mustang, then me. I'm used to people admiring the car. It's a head-turner, no question, but there was something different about the way he was looking at me. It wasn't appreciation, it was suspicion, laced with something uglier. "Whose car is this?" he called out, his voice sharp, like he was interrogating me. I paused, one hand still on the door handle, and turned to face him. "Mine," I said simply, keeping my tone even. I've dealt with enough confrontations to know when someone's fishing for a fight. He raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a smirk. "You sure?" he said, taking a step closer, his eyes flicking over me like I was some kind of puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "You don't look like you can afford something like this." The words hung in the air, heavy and deliberate. I felt my jaw tighten, but I kept my cool. I've heard worse in my line of work, comments slung at me in holding cells, on street corners, in the heat of tense standoffs. This kid, though, he was bold. I'll give him that. Bold and ignorant. Yeah, I'm sure, I said, locking eyes with him. Bought it myself. Is there a problem? He scoffed, a short, derisive sound that made my blood simmer. "You people always act like you own the place," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Bet it's stolen. You people." Those two words hit like a punch, but I didn't flinch. I've been in this neighborhood long enough to know what he meant. And it wasn't about my job or my car. It was about the color of my skin, the assumptions he'd already made before I even opened my mouth. I took a slow breath, reminding myself that losing my temper wouldn't solve anything. I've dealt with prejudice before on the job, in stores, even in this very community. But there's something about hearing it in your own backyard, from a kid who's barely old enough to vote. That stings a little deeper. Before I could respond, I heard the unmistakable whine of a golf cart speeding across the lot, and there, she was Karen, in all her glory, her blonde hair bouncing as she barreled toward us, phone already pressed to her ear. She was wearing one of those oversized sun hats that scream, "I'm in charge." and her face was twisted in a mix of outrage and triumph. "Yes, hello," she shouted into the phone, loud enough for half the neighborhood to hear. "There's a suspicious man here with a stolen car. He's intimidating my son. Please, send someone right away." I stood there, arms crossed, watching her performance. Ethan was still smirking, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes now, like he wasn't entirely sure how this was going to play out. Karen, on the other hand, was in her element, gesturing wildly, her voice climbing higher with every word. "He's just standing there, acting like he owns that car. I know everyone in this neighborhood, and I've never seen him with anything like that." I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I've been in situations like this before, not just as a civilian, but as a cop. You learn to let people dig their own holes, and Karen was digging hers with a bulldozer. I leaned against my Mustang, the metal cool against my back, and waited. The clubhouse was quiet now, a few curious faces peeking out from the windows, drawn by the commotion. I could feel their eyes on me, but I kept my focus on Karen and her son, their indignation building like a storm about to break. 3 minutes later, the familiar flash of red and blue lights appeared at the edge of the lot. A squad car pulled up, and 2 officers stepped out, their faces neutral, but alert. I recognized them immediately. Rodriguez and Carter, the guys I'd worked with 4 years. Rodriguez, the senior of the 2, caught my eye first, and I saw the moment of recognition hit him. His brow furrowed, and he tilted his head slightly, like he was trying to make sense of the scene. "Chief," he said, his voice tinged with confusion. "What's going on here?" Karen froze. Her phone slipped slightly in her hand, and her mouth opened, but no words came out. Ethan, meanwhile, looked like he wanted to melt into the pavement. His earlier bravado was gone, replaced by a sudden fascination with his sneakers. I gave Rodriguez a small nod, keeping my expression neutral. "Just a misunderstanding," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Seems like there's some concern about my car." Carter, the younger officer, glanced at the Mustang, then back at me, a faint grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Your car, huh? Looks like a beauty." Karen finally found her voice, though it was a lot shakier now. I didn't know," she stammered, her face turning a shade of white that matched her golf cart. He was acting suspicious, and Ethan said, what?" I cut it, my tone still even, but with just enough edge to make her flinch. I turned to her son, who was now studying the ground like it held the secrets of the universe. "Go ahead, Ethan. Tell the officers what you told me." He mumbled something incoherent, his face flushed red. Karen jumped in, her words tripping over each other. "It was just a mistake. We didn't know who you were. We're just trying to keep the neighborhood safe." Rodriguez raised an eyebrow, his gaze shifting between Karen and me. "Ma'am," he said, his voice polite but firm, "calling 911 over a car in a parking lot isn't exactly keeping the neighborhood safe. It's tying up resources that could be needed elsewhere." I stepped forward, my hands in my pockets, and addressed the officers. "Thanks for the quick response, guys. Looks like we're all clear here." Then I turned to Karen and Ethan, lowering my voice just enough for them to hear. "This neighborhood has rules, yes, but racism isn't one of them. Next time, think before you dial 911. You wasted valuable time and resources over your own prejudice." Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Ethan still wouldn't meet my eyes. I gave them one last look, then walked back to my Mustang. The engine roared to life as I turned the key, the sound cutting through the silence of the lot. I pulled away, leaving Karen and her son standing there, hopefully with a lesson they wouldn't forget anytime soon. As I drove down the quiet streets of the neighborhood, the tension in my shoulders started to ease. The Mustang's rumble was like a heartbeat, steady and grounding. I thought about the years I'd spent building a life here, raising my kids, coaching Little League, showing up to those endless HOA meetings. I thought about the people who'd welcomed me, the neighbors who'd become friends, and the ones, like Karen, who still saw me as an outsider no matter what I did. It wasn't the first time I'd faced something like this, and it probably wouldn't be the last. But moments like today, where the truth came out and the tables turned, made it a little easier to keep going. I pulled into my driveway, the Mustang gleaming under the midday sun. My daughter was outside, drawing chalk pictures on the sidewalk, and she waved as I stepped out of the car. "Hey, Dad," she called, her smile bright enough to make the whole morning feel like a distant memory. I waved back, my heart a little lighter. This was my home, my community, my life, and no one, not Karen, not her son, not anyone was going to take that away from me.